Thank you, Virginia, for the presentation. And I also would like to thank everybody involved in this conference and video program to moving this thing online. It is a very interesting experience on several levels, I think. So welcome to this paper with this somewhat lengthy title, the meaning of which I will try to unfold in the next 15 minutes. So that's a very short time span. And if ever it seems a bit elliptic what I'm saying, so please do ask afterwards, and then we can dig a little bit deeper. So first of all, you'll have to bear with my image, then you will see other images and a little bit of video also. African music videos and fashion have been at the center of my research for some time now. And last year, I curated the exhibition and research project connecting Afro futures, fashion, hair design at the Berlin Museum of Decorative Arts together with Beatrice Angut-Ola and Claudia Bunn. So I will post you a link in the chat. Then whoever's interested can have a look at the project. For this project, I put together a screening program with music videos, and I also wrote an article for the Magalog. And today's presentation is a sort of spin-off of this research, focusing on three artists whose name I will also post. Is Seinabo Sey, Baloji, and Sampa the Great. But before we will have a closer look at their music videos, I would like to develop some ideas on the larger context they evolve in. Firstly, there's the context of the music industry, and more specifically, the music video as a genre. Well, in this case of today, I'm less interested in the music video as a promotional tool for musicians and their music in the sense of a brand, but more in its experimental laboratory character, as mentioned by Lev Manovich. Once this experimental potential of music videos is explored, they can be used to develop propositions of aesthetic, cultural, and societal relevance, instead of being simple promotional tools for pop music and musicians. Secondly, our examples move not exclusively, but also in an African context, where this experimental function of music videos is widely explored to playfully criticize established patterns of thought and social models. An explicitly political example would be the video No More Third World by Yat Fu from 2013, is made in Senegal, and they develop a marked post-colonial critique. Or one could also think of the videos by the fucking boys from Ghana, who repeatedly tackle institutions such as the school and very often the church in their songs and music videos. In this function, music videos are part of a larger movement bridging the African continent and the diaspora, a movement that is trying to figure out how African societies wish to define themselves in the present and for the future. Visible outcomes would be, just to name just two examples, Fabien Sarr's book Afrotopia from 2016 and Les Ateliers de la Pensée, that he has initiated together with Achille Mbembe, and those labs are a project to reposition African ways of thinking society and the world. In terms of music videos, we could think of videos that show societies in which members of the LGBTQIA+ communities proudly present themselves as equal members of said societies, even if the lived reality might be very different. So those videos would have a utopian potential, and an example could be the videos by Umlilo from South Africa. As I said, this movement bridges the African continent and the diaspora, so the third extremely important parameter in our context is the definition we give to Africa. And that would be one that does not define Africa as a continent of nations, but as a cultural space that includes the afrodiasporic communities, which are in constant exchange with the continent. That would be a definition you will find, for example, in Achille Mbembe's Sortir de la Grande Nuit, Essai sur l'Afrique décolonisée. And this exchange is supported by the growing access to production tools and the internet on the African continent, which, through a rapid flux of information and exchange of ideas, spans the continent and the diaspora in this shared cultural space in unprecedented ways. Well, before the lockdown, the exchange was not only virtual, but also relied on people, and this is where the repats enter the game. Since most African countries gained their independence, the flux of people was mainly seen as being a one-way flux, especially from a Western perspective. People would leave African countries to have a better life in the West. They would occasionally visit and send money back home. Over the last years, this has significantly changed, and there's a growing number of members of mainly younger generations, often very well educated, who move back to contribute to the movement mentioned above, to help building African societies that determine their own political, economic, and social living conditions in defiance of all new colonial interventions, and to contest the image of Africa as a poor continent populated by even poorer people. Well, already in 2012, the phenomenon had become so visible that, for example, the Nigerian fashion designer Buki Akeb dedicated her collection Homecoming to these returnees. Now, while all our three examples, Seinabo Sey, Baloji, and Sampa the Great, all mostly live in the diaspora, where they also have started their careers, the situation is not the same for all of them. Some of them were born in the diaspora, some on the continent, some are of mixed heritage, and so on. The important feature, however, is the movement back to the continent, to where their families have migrated from, as key part of their quest for cultural self-definition. Well, this wouldn't necessarily be interesting had it not resulted in videos or films bearing witness to this return and the resulting collaborations. In the following, my brief analysis of these videos or films will concentrate on the role of fashion and Afro hairstyles in them for two reasons. Firstly, outfits and hairstyles in general are part of the carefully choreographed mise en scène presented in music videos, and thus play a major role in the production and transmission of the musician's images. And secondly, dress codes, including hairstyles, have been a central site of the colonial project to control and westernize the colonized. And up to today, Western beauty models and fashion perspectives tend to dominate not only Western cultures. Just think of the predilection for light skin and straight hair, for example. But this Western hegemony has not remained uncontested. And over the roughly last 10 years, the African fashion movement has managed to slowly impose itself with its own vision of fashion, while at the same time, the natural hair movement has gained importance. Now, all three artists use fashion and hairstyles to explore and assert their identities. And now I'm going to share my screen and show you some images. Here we go. For her video, I Owe You Nothing from 2018, Seinabo Sey made the journey from Sweden to Gambia, where her father's family comes from. Besides the different fashion and hairstyles shown throughout the video, and you can get a glimpse of them here in this first image, we see Seinabo Sey in a rather intimate scene where her hair is being done by her aunt. Scenes around hair care are usually very private, not open to be presented to strangers. They are safe spaces, as is the Afro salon. Now you might ask yourself, how does she know that? She's a white European researcher, and it is true, this will always be my perspective, including all the biases that go with that perspective. But I learned a lot and got very valuable insights from friends and the people I'm working with, especially from my colleague and friend Beatrice. Well, all the more interesting that this, especially by white people, often ignored and unknown part of Afro culture is more and more asserted and presented, also in music videos. Seinabo Sey put it like this: I figured it's time I stand up for myself, and this is my best way of doing that. The musician and filmmaker Baloji, our second example, has built a quite fruitful collaboration between Belgium and Congo, especially the art scene in Kinshasa. We will look at one video or short film that functions more like a short version of a video album and is called Zombie. It is from 2019. The short film tackles an overconnected generation, especially the exaggerated use of smartphones and the marked propensity to take selfies in every situation, as you can already see here. Fashion and costumes play a central role throughout the video, and so do hairstyles. You can already see that they are wearing interesting fashion compositions made by artificial hair, or made from artificial hair. The Afro salon figures in several scenes, also in this one, and one of them even features a discussion about the question of straight versus natural hair that I will present to you in some images now. So the girl complains, or the client complains, because it hurts. She wears her hair natural, so it does hurt much, much more. And the hairdresser complains about Kinshasa girls and how they treat their hair because they wear wigs. But the client says that wigs are completely out of fashion because it's natural hair now. And the hairdresser is not happy with the natural hair. She says that even Serena Williams types go straight now. And luckily we have subtitles here, so if ever you watch the video, it is neither in French nor in English in this part. I think they're speaking Lingala. And using African languages as well as wearing African fashion and hairstyles was something that was shunned for assimilation's sake. At the time, it wasn't cool to bring your culture to a global stage. States Sampa the Great, who now, the same as Baloji, does exactly this for her album The Return from 2019, which brought her back from Australia to her native Zambia. The album and the videos are the product of a close collaboration between Australian and Zambian members of her team, as we can see in the short documentary Sampa the Great, A Return by Sanjay De Silva. The production process is an intense cultural exchange, and with the video for Final Form, which is our last example, Sampa the Great not only wanted, I quote, to show how vibrant and colorful fashion and visuals from home can really be, unquote, it is also about a deeper exploration of culture. She says, we often, as Black people in the diaspora, talk about the physical return to our roots, but not so often about the spiritual. Final Form is meant to start that conversation. And now I will leave this presentation and come back to you to post you a link to the video. And I would like you to have a look at the video for 1 or 2 minutes on your own computer, because then the quality is so much better. And now I would ask you to just have a look, and I will call you back to the presentation. Please have a look now. So I think it's time now to come out of the video, and I would like to end my presentation actually with this brief insight into Sampa's video that stands for itself as an argument, I think. And I will post you the links to the other 2 videos, and I'm looking forward to your questions later on. Thank you.